How do you know my name? Is that really your name? No, just kidding. I'm new in town. I heard Poseidon Bay was a tough place, but I thought my pint would be safe. The barman looked at me as if I were mad. I stood my ground. I was going to get another pint, even if I had to pay for it. No chance. If you've got a complaint, then have a word with the manager. Here he comes, the barman assured me. You are over 25, aren't you? Of course, I lied. Good, he said, obviously not believing me. The irony in his voice rang out like a monastery bell. We both knew half the people in the place were underage. He set the three-quarter filled glass jug on the counter and pretended that the froth on top that brought the level to the brim was part of the drink. I stared at him, willing him to top up my drink. We both knew it was a short measure. He stared back at me, willing for me to pay up. I caved. How much is that? I asked. £9.95, please. Thanks. I knew in Poseidon Bay arguing was useless. I was not going to ask for change. He knew it. Everyone knew it. 5 pence coins had gone out of circulation 6 years after Brexit. That's why they set the price like that. Look after the pennies. No one would argue over 5 pence. I was not going to be the first. Besides, I had spotted the manager wending his way towards me. He slipped past the barman and opened the flap on the bar, walking through the gate, bolting it behind him, and deftly putting the flap back. He turned to face the throng standing in front of him, waiting to be served. It was my chance. Excuse me, landlord, but my pint was just stolen, I exclaimed angrily. My acting abilities were second to none. I had played pup like a professional actor. Well, that was what Mrs. Thwaites, my drama teacher, said after my role in the school production. It happens all the time here. We sell beer, we don't provide security for it, he noted as he left the bar counter flap, stepped through the wooden gate and closed the bar flap behind him. The police won't come here after one of their squad cars was pushed into the harbour. Those electric cars don't like water. It was a shocking waste of life. He walked towards me. He did not look aggressive, but 4 years of being in sales had taught me to expect the unexpected. I put my pint on the cigarette machine in order to talk to him without a pint as a prop. Even though he was moving through the bar, I was determined to stick with him. I was his shadow. I followed him that closely, talking at his shoulder. I appreciate that, but what exactly are you doing to keep everyone safe here? I asked indignantly. He would no doubt buy me a replacement pint just to get me off his back and out of his hair. Come with me and I'll show you, he replied tersely, surprising me by his reply and by the fact that as he spoke he was rolling up his shirt sleeves like a street fighter. I briefly wondered if we were going to have a pop at me. I could see us sparring in the beer garden. I turned round to grab my pint and follow. It was already gone, yet there was no one there. This place had originally been a 15th century inn. I would have believed there was a dipsomaniac ghost haunting the place if anyone had told me. Hurriedly, following the landlord, I caught up with him at a large rectangular table with bentwood chairs on either side. I noticed a pile of cans and glasses piled up in front of two lovely-looking local girls. They were nursing their beer, seemingly oblivious to the mess. Next to them were 6 smugglers. You could tell. They had their white suit jackets on the back of their chairs, Britannia blue shirts undone so much that wisps of chest hair peeped out from the open neck, royal red braces and Union Jack cufflinks. Right, boys, the landlord announced with a friendly manner. He was obviously used to dealing with characters. We can't allow cans brought in, and the glasses you've piled up in front of the ladies need to be put back on your side or taken to the bar. His instructions were met with incredulity, or even incredulity. On the far end was a fresh-faced teenager who seemed to be the ringleader. He swung back and forth on his chair defiantly. The landlord promptly produced a Phase 3 taser gun from his pocket and hit the closest of the white suits with a jolt of a few hundred volts of electricity. It was like he had 17 piranha fish in his white suit trousers. The poor boy went into spasm for 30 seconds, screamed in agony, and collapsed back in his chair, unconscious. There was a flurry of activity while the other 4 cleared away, taking the detritus up to the bar. The ringleader swung on his chair. It was my chance to make a name for myself. The landlord had shock value. I just had to be brave. A tough reputation as a salesman is always needed these days. Yeah, those cans need to be recycled, and you shouldn't be swinging on your chair, I thundered like Thor with a headache. As I passed the corner of the table, I pushed the ringleader's shoulder, forcing all 4 legs onto the floor. He looked up into my eyes, a sneer on his face, and a death stare. His lips twitched as though he were going to speak. I noticed that he was a typical leader, good-looking, tall, and charismatic, everything I was not. I was taking on Alexander the Great, only in my rush to make a name for myself, I had neglected to notice exactly to whom I was talking, and whom exactly I was taking on. I am fairly tall, fairly good-looking, and fairly good fun to be with. He was the Adonis above all others, the epitome of all three. The presence of the landlord and his electric pacifier may have been the main reason why I did not rip my head from my body. Perhaps he was polite and kind to strangers, or he was biding his time, because he felt revenge was a dish best enjoyed cold, or maybe he was waiting for there to be less witnesses around. Now, lads, you leave these girls be if you want to avoid a bolt from heaven, the landlord warned, shaking his taser in the air like Zeus holding a thunderbolt above his head and deciding his target. The other smugglers meekly sat down, having cleared away, ignoring their unconscious colleague. He was still out cold, his eyes were still closed. His chin still rested on his chest, and his body still slumped forward in his chair. The girls were talking animatedly, pretending nothing was going on. That was the way in Poseidon Bay. Yeah, I growled. My name is Aubrey East. I'll be in town for a while, so I'll get to know all of you sooner or later. I surveyed the faces, looking to see if I had impressed anyone. I got another deadly look from the ringleader. I think one of the girls secretly glanced over at me, sighing with admiration, but she could have been rolling her eyes and groaning. It was difficult to tell. It was time to leave. I was not sure how much charge was left in the landlord's electric cattle prod. I walked out onto the fire escape with my leather shoes tapping out of tune on the metal grid beneath my feet. I trotted noisily down the steps and into the beer garden. To the left I spotted a lane. If the smugglers were coming after me, they must have completed ninja training. I could not hear footsteps on steel. I was assured by the silence behind me, but the walk to my hotel was going to be dangerous. I dared not look back. Far ahead in the lane, within calling distance, was a group of rugby players coming for an evening pint, still dressed in their sports clothes. I had noticed another team sitting in the beer garden, in rugby shirts, shorts and socks, their filthy boots piled up at the end of the benches. If I was attacked from behind, it was likely both teams would save me. I was confident of that. I felt sure that a single person attacked by half a dozen wimpy-looking teenagers would be rescued. Rugby players are tough and hate injustice. I know that much. Luck was finally on my side, but I was thirsty still. I'd walked for 3 days to get to Poseidon Bay, and only wet my whistle on a sip of beer. I would have to buy a litre carton of water at the hotel. Maybe I would eat out tomorrow night if I could pull off a deal. My boss would not begrudge me a decent meal if I made him so much money. Tonight, I had to look forward to half a tin of pilchards and a hunk of baguette. Tomorrow would be my second day in Poseidon Bay. I'd finally made it to the most famous den of iniquity on earth. I wondered what this place must have been like before Article 50 was triggered and the smugglers moved in. My boss had helpfully advised me to read Moonfleet. The book was set around here in the 18th century, when smuggling was civilized. I wondered if I would be able to see the latest wreck, a Czech freighter, run aground, when the privateers turned off the lighthouses and blocked the GPS signals along the coast. It had floundered on Seaton Beach, only 10 miles away. I might get a lift there, after a good night's sleep and a hard day's negotiating. There was a good pub, according to my boss, and I might pick up some bunts on the shore. If not, if it was a hot day, I might go for a quick dip or a little paddle. With the thoughts of swimming in my mind, I suddenly realised I was at the hotel reception. I was in one piece, and I had no trunks with me. In my room, I laid out a blue, red and white silk tie, my navy suit and a white shirt on the computer desk next to my bed. I slipped a pair of highly polished brogues under the desk. I stripped off my white shirt and slid my trousers over my legs. There was an alcove with a curtain behind which I had stowed my roll-up rucksack and a linen bag. I gathered up all my clothes, slipped out of my socks, and popped all my dirty clothes in the linen sack. I have to be highly organised, literally living out of a suitcase and visiting people around the country. Wrapping a towel around my waist, I walked into the shower next door. Travelling around the country necessitates minimising everything. A small sponge bag contained 100 ml plastic bottle of shampoo, a 100 ml plastic bottle of shower gel, 100 ml tube of toothpaste, a 150 ml roll of deodorant, and an electric toothbrush. I bought my own tiny towel, but the hotel had provided me with one that was a size up. Not quite the size of a swimming pool towel, but close. The shower made me feel better. The water was hot. They must have had solar panels on the roof. At least I was clean. Drying my hair afterwards, I thought about the meeting with Lawless. I knew he was interested, otherwise why would he see me? All I had to do was negotiate a good price if I wanted to keep my job. I could not blow the negotiations. No matter what happened, I had to seal the deal. If I failed, my boss would sack me immediately. I wrapped myself in a fresh towel, my own, and drew back the alcove curtain again. Reaching up onto the single shelf above all my gear, I carefully took down a plastic sandwich box, being careful not to tilt it. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I opened it, relieved to see nothing had spilt from the tin. Pilchards in tomato sauce would not be on my list of final meals before execution, but I was hungry and feeling depressed. I eat when I feel down. Comfort food is my thing. The baguette was still dry. No sauce had sloshed out onto the bread, which was a result. Even the stale, chewy baguette provided some comfort. I went to bed on a full stomach, which put me in the top 10% of the population, which made me somehow feel ashamed and better, both at the same time. Tomorrow morning, the rest of my baguette would be just like my day. Hard.